So, when you have a building or a complex or a association of homes, what can you do? Like, say you're in Deerfield and you have Lake Eleanor. We were part of a homeowners association on Lake Eleanor and in Meadow Lakes. All individual homes, part of a homeowners association. And that homeowners association can be responsible for security. Every house gets ADT in the association. Truly, the association can give every house ADT, and that goes to, and they can have private security. Even in Deerfield, on the public streets, monitoring their area of a homeowners association. Unlike Meadow Lakes, Lake Eleanor, we were all on public streets. Meadow Lakes, the whole community was on private streets. But Lake Eleanor, we were part of the association, and every home was on public streets. But we could have had our own security. Every house in the Meadow Lakes community had ADT, and we buy it as a bundle, and we pay as part of the association to have our own private security. Outside the Deerfield police, they work with them, but we have them, and they only patrolled our area. And what do they know? They know the tenants. They have everybody who lives in the house, and you can have friends that they register through IDs into the database system. That protects you from being killed. Fred Dorfman, on Lake Eleanor, he was killed in his driveway. Now, Mrs. Dorfman, I was friends with, and lo and behold, well, Mr. Dorfman was part of the Italian mafia. But still, if we had our own private security monitoring the association, unlike every so often the police car passes by, the private security would have been constantly making all night long. It could make 30 trips by your house per night. It would have made it very difficult because they don't know the timing of him coming home and then where the timing of the private security is. And it would have made it very difficult. So, not saying that I wanted to protect him, but it was good when he got killed. It was, truly. Because Miss Dorfman, she had nothing to do with the Italian mafia. His wife had nothing to do with it. Now, she was left inheritance from him that she did receive. But, again, she had no interactions with the mob after that. And that was good for her children as well. So it was actually a blessing that he got taken out by a mob assassin to her. Not the way you wanted to do, rather busted by the FBI or the police and go to jail and then go through the clemency and then so on and so forth. At least their kid knows their, father wasn't assassinated. I'm not saying the best thing. Just like Judas, Jesus gave every chance. The disciples gave him every freaking chance. Some people, God knows from the beginning. God knew what Judas was going to do. And he took him into his family. Jesus knew Judas. And he knew all the way in advance what he was going to do. And you don't believe me, God can see way into the future. So I know that because of my life. And I believe God can see decades as far as he wants. But the point is, God gave him a chance. Do you know that? God gave Judas a fighting chance. He had his son embrace him, knowing that he is this evil and that he had him and Jesus governed all the disciples. And you read through the Bible, Judas did things that weren't with the disciples, that were against Jesus. He never repented. And they tried for years and years and years and years and years and years to get him to change. God didn't put him in hell. He did. God, as the one joke says, the Jewish person, he says, God will save me. And then here comes a armored vehicle. And like, we got to get you out of here and save you. The dam's going to break. And then they send a helicopter. We got to get you out of here. We need to save you. And he keeps on saying, God will save me. And it goes on with a few others. But the whole point is, he gets to heaven and he's really mad. And he says, God, why didn't you save me? He says, blank, you're a schmuck. I sent you an armored vehicle. I sent you a helicopter. I sent you this. I sent you that. You refuse. That's what God looks at you with me. I give you the solutions. You're a schmuck. And you deserve to perish and burn in hell. So either you fix the situations with the tailgaters and everything else, or you perish forever. There's Fireside Terrace. Here's Buffalo Grove Ridge. Now let's get back to this on the other standpoint. But make no mistake, God is incredibly fair. Some people are just destined to burn. No matter what you do, they play you for a sucker. Judas played Jesus and the disciples as suckers. Do you know that? He played them all as suckers. As me and my friend Tina Chen. Her and her parents are incredibly biblical. And I love Tina. She's a great friend. I don't see her anymore. Yeah, now I cry. But again, that's how my bond I felt with her. But again, that understanding this, and you have to be wise as a serpent, and I told her you have to be wiser than the serpent so the serpent doesn't get you. Just being on par with the serpent gives it a 50-50 chance. But if you're better than the serpent, then it turns into 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, 100%. And that's why we do the force multiplier. Even with our infantry, how savvy is Donald Trump? Because if I was the commander-in-chief, and we call the president the commander-in-chief, he runs all of our military forces. He runs the CIA, the NSA. He runs all of that. He is the commander-in-chief. The reason I voted for George Bush Sr., and I wanted him to be president and not Bill Clinton, and as you see, and you will see, do you know when George Bush Sr. didn't get reelected? Bin Laden and all of that grew. What did President Clinton do? And I'm going to drive for a little bit before I get my food to finish this. He dismantled the CIA, all their ground intelligence. He went to satellite only, and he dismantled all the ground intel. So he dismantled all the ground intelligence. And he went to satellite intel. But we didn't have the satellite systems, the capabilities that the NSA does. But still, what did bin Laden do? He trained with the CIA. They can say whatever they want, but it's untrue. He was part of the education because the Russians used satellites. They used sophisticated monitoring and tracking systems for communication. They were able to tap all cell phones, all transmissions. Remember, the Russians had cutting edge with us. And so our CIA taught him. And so what did he do? He only used caves. Why caves? Satellites couldn't penetrate caves. So they couldn't see inside to see who's there or see in troop movements. It's the same thing the Vietnamese did. They used tunnels to move missiles and ammunition and troops. The Tet Offensive, we didn't see the buildup because most of the buildup was moved through deep forest, just like the Ardennes, where the Germans went through. They went through with their mechanized army a forest they thought was unpassable, that no mechanized regiment was going to go through the Ardennes forest, I think. So they didn't build the Maginot Wall there. They didn't have protection there. They thought the density of the forest was protection enough. And so the Germans used it. The only weak point they had was this. But what did Hitler do before? And this is what Putin did before the Ukraine thing as well. The Germans crossed into French territory. They sent a regiment out into French territory. This is not widely, I never hear this talked about, but what did they do? They sent a regiment into French territory. Why? The regiment was there to see how the French would react to troop movements when they invaded their country. Germany actually invaded France in 1939. Germany invaded France in 1939. They sent a German regiment across the line. It went into France, just across the border, not far into France, but say a mile or two across the border, and then it just sat there. It didn't do anything. It just sat there. And they wanted to see if the French would respond to a border crossing. And so Hitler watched. This is 38, maybe 39, before the invasion of Poland, the first invasion. And Hitler sent the regiment across, knowing they would be annihilated. If the French attacked, they would have killed them all. They would have killed or took them all captive. The point was they were a sacrificial lamb. Testing. And so the French did nothing. They didn't change their troop movements. They didn't do anything. They just let them sit there. And so the regiment retreated, went back into Germany. It was there for months, waiting, goading the French to do something. It wasn't to tip the French hand to see troop movements. It was to see if the French would react to a border crossing by German troops. And if they wouldn't react to a border crossing by German troops into France, what would you think they do if the Germans crossed into Poland? Nothing. And Hitler had the finest trained army. Remember, Germany before World War II implemented nationally a fitness program. And that's why the Olympics was a big deal, because he wanted to show the superiority of his fitness program. But the United States didn't catch on with that Olympics, with Jesse Owens winning, but he only won in certain events. The Germans were very proficient. They won a lot of medals. He won in track and field, but the Germans won a lot of medals during that Olympics. Make no mistake about it, they performed well. We always focus on Jesse Owens, and that was an embarrassment to Hitler, losing the track and field. to a black man. But the whole point was we didn't see their gearing up of their society. He had already the German youth movement, or the young neo-Nazis, you would call them, not neo-Nazis, but whatever they called them, already. Just like in China, he had the Red Brigade. But this was in advance of certain things. The Red Book in China was to keep power. This was to invade and take over Europe. And why did Germany want to invade and take over Europe? Because if you look after World War II, what did Poland do? Poland took a large chunk of German land. Oh yeah, Poland got physical reparations, and they also took a large chunk of German land. And I forget who else took German land. But number one, Poland took a big chunk of German land, and they were paying a lot of reparations to Germany. So internally, there was a lot of freaking hatred. And then the Germans were going through hyperinflation. And who was in power? A lot of Jews, because even back then, they focused on science and law and finance. And they're going through, and the Jewish people are in these positions of power, wealth, and the German people are going through hyperinflation, where literally they let them off of work after like noon, and they would fill up their wheelbarrows with paper money, and they would shop and buy whatever they could at noon, and then when they got off at work, they paid them every day half a day. Lunchtime wasn't for lunch. Lunchtime was taking your money and going out and buying whatever you could before the prices rose. So the the businesses were trying to manage it by paying their employees on half-day segments, trying to manage inflation by giving them their money faster. But the reparations, and with the reparations, they weren't getting enough supplies into Germany, creating incredible scarcity. See, Germans were paying out, but they weren't receiving from countries. They basically were embargoing Germany. Even with the sanctions, they weren't supplying goods and service to Germany. So Germany had great demand and was undersupplied. And they were putting out things and sending things out, doing lots of export to the rest of Europe. Yes, they were producing internally, but they didn't have the agricultural France did and the other truly economies. They were a very much manufacturing-based economy. And still today, manufacturing is the leading thing in Germany. They're a huge manufacturing-based and technology-based economy. So they produce a lot of hard goods. So the rest of Europe, they produce a lot of agriculture. Italy and all of that too, and they did take Italy as a partner, and one of it was because of agricultural. People don't talk about this, but Italy produced a lot of agriculture. And Germany had all the mechanized they needed. They needed the Italian agriculture. But do you see any of the war emphasizing food? Food. Germans, when they invaded the Soviet Union, they starved of food. Why they took Italy in was they needed their agricultural belt. They needed the food resources. And so they were starving Germany. And so there was a scarcity on the shelves of food. And the German people were starving and every year paying a lot of money in subsidies for World War I, taking all their land, and then continuously starving their people, and they're making all this mechanized stuff and sending it all over for agricultural and everything to all these countries, and they were building tractors and many other things for them. That's how they built the tank. They were already building tractors. So they were sending all this agricultural farming equipment all over Europe, and they weren't getting back what they needed, agriculture. And the German people were starving. The businesses were trying to manage it, but the scarcity was so great. And so they would send them out on a half a day. They would pay them and literally read the story. Wheelbarrows full of cash to buy a few things of produce. And then at the end of the day, they would pay them again immediately, so they could go out and buy whatever they could that was remaining on the shelves, trying to maintain their work base because their work base was starving. So the employers wanted to not undernourish their work base, and so they were paying them immediately, trying to get the most out of their workers. So the Germans needed agriculture. That's why they invaded Poland. Poland wasn't heavy in manufacturing or anything, and they killed a lot of horses when they invaded Poland. But they invaded it with the Soviet Union, who also had a problem with Poland. Because of bad Polish leadership, they did bad deals, alienating very powerful, mechanized countries. The Soviet Union, they have a big agricultural base, but they didn't produce much agricultural. They needed the Eastern Bloc countries to produce agriculture for them. They didn't know how to produce agriculture in cold weather and so on. And so they had agricultural scarcity, the Soviet Union. And one of the things about invading Poland, and Germany and the Soviets went in together, was to grab agriculture to feed their people. And so, again, and Germany was purchasing huge amounts of high steel. Yeah, the Soviets were really good at producing high-grade steel. The Germans, the generals didn't want to go into 42. Hitler went in 39. The generals wanted 3 more years. They told them, don't invade until 42. Why? So we can build up more planes for the Luftwaffe, do more training of our pilots, build up our mechanized units, do more training of our mechanized units. Do you know what would have happened if the Germans waited 3 more years? They would have crushed Russia. As much as they went into the last hurrah at St. Petersburg, if they waited 3 more years to invade Europe and then were still building, and they had to refocalize to repair. So all those manufacturing plants, they stopped manufacturing. They started manufacturing ball bearings and replacement propellers and replacement treads for the tanks and everything else, because they didn't have the manufacturing base. Not big enough. So all they could do is replace the parts. And they had took over Yugoslavia and that, and they were building replacement parts for the current mechanized, and they were salvaging their equipment. So they were shrinking. They weren't building anything new. But the generals knew this, and they told Hitler not to go, because once we go, we don't have the manufacturing base to build new planes, to build new fighters. That's why when they built the V-2 rockets, very few. They built first jet fighter plane. They had a couple. They just couldn't do it. The Battle of the Bulge, they did build up some new manufacturing, which they hid, but it wasn't a tremendous amount. It was more consolidating units and then adding some new Sherman tanks and some new Panthers. But again, not the same. See, I'm allowed to go whatever speed I want. And if you don't like it, it's on you. They don't post the minimum speed limit here. So I can go 1 mile an hour if I want. I already complained to the state. If you don't post the minimum, here's a sign right up here saying the maximum is 40. I can go 1 mile an hour. What if I'm a bicycle riding in the middle of the street? I experienced this in Chicago. A bicyclist right in the middle of the street and going a couple miles an hour, even 1 mile. I had to wait for the bicycle. I just sat behind the bicycle all the way till they got to this place at the stoplight, and then they moved to the right-hand side. But I just had to wait. The bicycle, because they post no minimum speed limit, I'm not required to go faster. If you don't like it, that's on you. And if you honk your horn, they should break your freaking hand. I don't have to speed up. Another guy behind me, writing me, I have no obligation to go faster. I can go slower. Do you know our law is based on conservatism? Conservatism. Accounting, it's the same way. It's based on conservative principle. We're the tortoise, not the hare. As it says, 35 for the turn. Even slow down from 40. Maximum in the turn, 35. So if you honk your horn at me, as I watched and fully capable with my mother, and I used to drive with her, and people waited. They saw an old lady and were polite. But make no mistake about it, if you honked the horn and pulled over your car, at that time, I in shape, I would have snapped you like a twig. I would have destroyed you. I would have beat you silly. Because you were breaking the law. As the car behind me is breaking the law. You can't tailgate me. You can't do anything to me. Another lawbreaker. We don't go with the fastest. We go conservative, the slowest. That's why on the highway, they put the maximum 55, the minimum 45. When it goes up to 75, they put the minimum at 65. Here, it just shows the maximum. That means the minimum is 0. And I can literally block the road and stop. I've been doing nothing illegal. Ever. But your prosecutors and your police have been harassing me. Your citizens have been harassing me. And they need to be taken in and beaten the fuck out of. Oh, yes, because you're psychologically torturing me. And that is leading to my physical pains. So I believe you should be taken in and they beat the living fucking shit out of you. Because you deserve it. You're breaking the law, not me. So God watches. He's going to kill you all for the last 10 years. So either you pull these people in and you start kicking the living fuck out of them. And I mean the living fuck out of them. Or you all die. And this is not a power grab. This is about justice and righteousness. You're doing things you have no right to do to me. You must maintain your distance. And if you don't, die forever. Just as Judas did, God is watching to see if you play the fool. and you don't change. And if you stay with tradition, you're all dead. And you deserve to die. Like, yes, it looks like the Amazon truck tailgating me. I don't have to go faster. If a car flies into you, it's their fault. But the funny thing is, you hit me on a highway. And you let them go. You let them go my whole life, threatening my life continuously. God said he watch what you do now. And if you let people get away with any crime against me, you and them die. There is no unrighteousness. You all die. So if you stay with tradition, you're all dead. And a prosecutor should be watching this, scared the fucking shit out of them. And so should the government. The politicians are going to burn. And you're like, oh, you know, the separation between religious. It was to separate between unrighteousness. You have no reason like this motherfucker should be killed. You have no reason. I drove with my mother, and she drives these speeds. Do you know how many cars did that? Not a single car. As I told you, God watched and prepared me to watch your actions. And my mother drove slow, and I drove as a passenger, watching. And watching how cars reacted. And none of them tailgated her. None of them beeped the horn at her. None of them aggravated her in any way, shape, or form. So these people need to die. You're playing the fool. And that's why God said you drowned out a single word, you're dead. That means the politicians want to claim ignorance. The police want to claim ignorance. And they need to die for it. And they will. All the shit you've done to me is highly illegal, violating my civil rights. Every single one of these people violating my civil rights. You kicked me out of over 100 places. You banned me from Sam's Club because somebody doesn't speak English. They're not ADA. They're not disabled. They're freaking willingly violating the law, speaking English only in the workplace. They can't work in the front office. They can't be client-facing. That's why they put them on call desks. Like here, illegally bribing me. They put them on call desks. Here you go. You take calls from Latin America. You don't take any English calls. You're not competent. Hold it. I called call centers in the Philippines. Speak perfect English for tech support. I called Microsoft call centers in El Salvador. Perfect English. And then they opened up a domestic call center, Microsoft did, because of India. They might speak English, but they were incompetent at thinking. They kept on putting me through, unplug the computer, reset the system, turn it off. And I told them, look at the threads. I'm looking at the threads. I've already rebooted multiple times. So I started calling Indian call centers and swearing at them because I had the callback number and I left some nasty fucking messages. You pieces of shit. 30 days I spent trying to repair my system. And what did Microsoft say? Oh, they didn't stay with tradition. They said, no, we have an internal, meaning with domestically in the United States, call this number and they'll deal with it. And I did. And they're like, here's the threads I've been through, read them. And they're like, okay, that's what we did at Vanguard. I had to read client history. And I would get the client on, I'm having this issue. And I said, give me a minute. I need to get up to speed on your issue. I'm going to put you on mute. It'll be a minute or so. I have to read through the history, and then I'll get back to you. And that's what the prosecutor is supposed to look through the history of the abuse with me. And they were like, abused here, held against his will, put on lithium and other narcotics, antipsychotics that he didn't need. And my therapist will testify that I should have never been put on antipsychotics. He took me off of them. I should have never been put on them. His words. He removed me from them. They weren't helping me. They were hurting me. He realized with the bloating, excessive weight gain, and everything else, and he realized that I don't get angered unless acted upon unrighteously. Unless acted upon. And he wasn't a friend of mine. My mom was in the first meeting. He was totally against me. And it was very frustrating for me. But I bit my tongue. I wanted to explode. How wrong are you? But I shut up. And then after months of sessions and seeing me, he's like, you don't have anger management problems. You don't belong on these drugs. You don't do psychotic action. You don't belong on these drugs. Everything they did to you was wrong. Meaning the therapist, the black psychiatrist who prescribed the drugs, he should have never prescribed those drugs for you. The Lake County Department of Health was wrong. They should have never put you on those drugs. And the Alexian brother psychiatrist should have reviewed your notes and taken you off the drugs. The massive weight gain, water gain, and other physical damage to your body where I lost neurological feeling in the side of my foot and all these other. He's like, I'm pulling you from the drugs. You don't have any issues. Society is screwing you over. We screwed you over. Your family, your girlfriend, your employers, the citizens, the politicians, the police. And he said, they all screwed you. And I could get him to testify in court and have a class action lawsuit against the citizens of Chicago. Oh yes, you can sue the citizen body. When you sue the government, you can sue the collective citizens in a class action lawsuit. Not only against the government, but every citizen of the city of Chicago. You can sue a whole population. Yes, you can. So not only the government, but you can sue every single freaking citizen, because the right to vote means they have an ability to change the laws, to change the electorate, and hence they will be punished. So those that are given the most have the greatest responsibility, and they will burn the greatest. I'm waiting for them to slam into that car and slam into me, like they did on the highway. I did everything to shake their tailing. I pumped the brakes. I slowed down. I pumped the brakes. Then I put on my flashers. And then I continued to pump the brakes. And the car stayed behind me. Hold it. I slowed down. And the other two lanes were open. Not a single car. As this car can see through depth perception that it's closing on me fast. And it needs to make a trade-off because I'm not going any faster, and it needs to move away from me. But what happened? I did everything. I slowed down first. I pumped the brakes. I put on my flashers and continued to pump the brakes. Slowing down, putting on the flashers, pumping the brakes. All of it. I didn't know what else to do. And they still stood on my ass, inches away from me, on the highway. And then the Hispanic, I saw him in the second lane, and he swerved over as an S and slammed into them, slamming into me. And their car went off into the knife-soft ditch. Mine got hit twice. Those chicks got hit once. I got hit by their car, and then the Hispanic car, his SUV hit them. They went off into the ditch, and then it hit me, spinning me around 180, facing incoming traffic. And then he ended up on the right-hand side. I got hit twice. They got hit once. I got hit twice. Because they were tailgating me, they hit me. If they weren't tailgating me, they would have never hit me. That Hispanic guy would have hit them, not me. But since they were tailgating, he hit them, they hit me, and then he hit me. Double foul. And then the black piece of shit, racist fucking piece of shit state trooper, which I ran into a racist black state trooper. He pulled me over for a ticket, which I was going, I don't know, under 10 over. And I pulled over all the way to the right-hand side. My license is legal. My tags are legal. Everything is legal. And what did he do? He harassed the shit out of me. He kept on shining his light in my eye. And I told my lawyer, and he's like, oh, police protection. I understand police protection. Once, he asked me the first thing when he got up, why did you pull all so far to the right-hand side? I said, officer, so when you pulled over, you would be protected. I pulled over all the way to the right as far as I could, knowing that you would pull all the way to the right so I could protect you. He didn't like that. Truly, he didn't say, oh, wow, Michael, you're so nice. He got pissed even more. You know, Black Lives Matter and Colin Kaepernick, I had multiple black police officers threaten me. This is before 2016 because of Black Lives Matter. Now, this guy wants me to get into a violent act with him. That's what my spidey sense was saying. And he provoked me. He asked me for my license, and I said, it's in the glove. I got to grab my wallet and pulled out. And as I turned, he brighted me, even with my head shining the lights in my eye. And I said, I can't see the glove box, officer. Can you please pull the light out of my eyes so I can see where I'm reaching? And he said, okay. And then as I reached and opened the glove box, he brighted me again. And I said, I can't see my wallet. Can you take the light out of my eyes, officer? And he took it away for a second. Then I grabbed my wallet and I said, I can't see my wallet, officer. He brighted me again. I need to grab my ID. He can see my wallet. It's not a gun. I said, I need to grab my driver's license. I can't see which one because you're brightening me with the lights. This is light torture. What you've been doing, you fucking piece of that shit! He was light torturing me. He knew it would aggravate me. He was trying to get my goat. And then he took the light out of my eyes and I grabbed the license. And I was about to hand it to him, and he brighted me again. And I said, "Officer, I can't see you to hand the license to you. Can you please take the light out of my eyes?" And he did, and I handed him my license. And then he's like, "I gotta go look this over." And then he went back and wrote me up for a ticket. And he took freaking half an hour or more writing up the ticket, like they did the black guy making me stand on the side of the highway. He had me sitting there for at least a half an hour or so. What was he checking? I don't know. What was he doing? I don't know. But I never had a speeding ticket to write it up take over a half an hour. And then he came back and he was very hostile. Oh yeah, extremely abrasive. And I had to sign for the ticket. And then he gave me the ticket. And I pulled off, and I was going to call Murray immediately as I was at the exit of 53 and 90. I was getting off of Jane Addams, getting on 53. And that's where he pulled me over on the tollway just before I got on the 53. There was new construction, and so the white line was all the way to the left. And I got on 53 afterwards, and I wanted to call the Illinois State Police and talk to Murray, who runs all their narcotics units for the state of Illinois. He's the commander of all their narcotics units, my brother's friend. The state of Illinois has their own narcotics task force, and he runs all of them through the state of Illinois. And I wanted to call him because he knows me. And I wanted this officer removed immediately. But during the Black Lives Matter, I had numerous incidents with black cops trying to make me do something illegal. He wanted to shoot me. What the hell do you think? He wants to hurt me. He wants to take me into jail. He's doing everything to provoke me. This is why I told you in 2016, God would watch. Anyone who provokes me in any way, shape, or form burns in eternal damnation. There is no more forgiveness. There is just death. And I've been railing against these groups, causing hatred. As the sniper, the black sniper on the roof, the ex-Marine, he gets all motivated and he kills the cops in Dallas. Then the black guy blows out the Asian guy's brains in the police car, and many other incidents of violence against police. Unbelievably. All motivated by Black Lives Matter. But then I go back to all the white groups that were in this doing the pigs and that, and they busted them. They go into Waco, arms a-blazing, and kill all them in Waco, the Branch Davidian. They kill all those white people. Now, those officers were mixed. Majority white, but I hate Janet Reno's guts. I hate her. And they handled it all wrong. And my friend works for the ATF. My roommate, Jim Sanders, became an ATF agent. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. My other friend, Matt Ombre, is a state trooper in Florida. I have a lot of people, FBI agents, all over the government law enforcement in high positions. At least back then I did. All over the government in the highest of positions. And I watched what we did to these groups in the 60s and 70s, these white groups in particular. And we went after them viciously, killing them, locking them up and killing them, going into their compound, arms blazing, killing them. What do you think the Michigan militia blew up the Oklahoma City building? that was a white militia group pushing back. They went in unbelievably viciously, slaughtering them. And then they watched the government, the Black Panthers in Philadelphia. You think they went after them hard? They didn't go after them shit compared to what they did to the white supremacists. They did incredibly more ruthless actions to white supremacists than they ever did to the Black Panthers. They ever did. So these groups watch. And I'm just watching the injustice of the government over-immigrating, flooding in with sanctuary cities and everything, pissing them the fuck off. And then when they get mad and say, we can't take it anymore, we're mad as hell, get rid of them. They don't. And they give them subsidies and benefits. And I'm seeing, and I used to talk to Jen about this. Her family took nothing from the government. Not a dime. She paid for her sister's education. Her brother got a scholarship. Her mother paid out of her own pocket for her education. Working diligently. And you know, her clients were all white people. And she showed them excellence. Jen used to work in the cleaners. Gina worked in the cleaners. Charles worked in the cleaners. They had a white lawyer in the basement they rented out a space to. They showed all their clients, majority, all of them were white. And they showed them exceptionalism, incredible respect. Respect. She was so detailed. She held the Asian cleaners, the cleaning plants. She would inspect the clothes and return it. If they damaged it at the cleaning plant, she would tell the client immediately and get money for their damage. Show them the damage that the cleaning plant did to the clothes. Her mother would hold the cleaning plant responsible. Jen told me with CD1, they burned my buttons. They melted my buttons because they over-steamed the clothing. And they were melting my buttons. They were doing it improperly. And then I go back to CD1 and tell them, they're like, we're not responsible for melting. Yes, you are. But Jen's mother would reject it. You burned the buttons. Everything was inspected going out. She inspected everything going out. She logged every item going out, what shape it was in. Because when it left her hands, she needed to get it back in better condition. Clean, spot removed, pressed correctly, not damaging the buttons, not burning the fabric, not pilling the fabric. And Jen told me they would sit there, Charles, Gina, and Jen, inspecting all the clothing before it got put on the rack. They put it on the rack, then they cover it with the plastic, then ready for client pickup. But their mother taught them to inspect every single piece, detail. And Jen grew up very, very detailed. But how could I love her and her family, which I can... But they showed incredible dignity and respect. She showed me incredible dignity and respect. Her family showed me dignity and respect. And they came in bettering the white community. She worked for 2 white guys in Texas for Real Foundation. They thought so much of her in the Rising Star program, they moved her. My friend who worked for Ernst & Young, who was the single largest seller, she was #1 of all sales of any partner. She was the #1, a woman, the first time ever, selling more consulting than anyone at Ernst & Young. She's my friend from the University of Arizona. The funny thing is, she's friends with Jen. They met at Ernst & Young. She was the top salesperson in the history of Ernst & Young. And that Ernst & Young, to tell you the truth, she quit and had to sue them. They stole her commissions. Other partners fired her, trying to pilfer her commissions from different contracts that she put in place with different firms. She took Ernst & Young to court and won. She left him. Her relative is James Cameron. They invited me and Jen to the wedding. And do you know what she said about me? And she's always had a huge crush on me. Huge crush on me. And she told Jen, Michael, destined for excellence, destined for success. I so believe in him. She loved me. And she was happy that I got a good girl. And she told Jen as we were walking to the movie theater how she thought I was the most exceptional male she knew. And here's the number one salesperson in Ernst & Young's consulting history. Number one! Saying I'm better than anyone. And that she is so happy for me that I found somebody who would love me right. And she said that I have her full support. She knew me from dirtbags and from school, serving her with excellence. So, I don't take you in going in these places and disrespecting me. They should destroy you. You treat me the way I deserve to be, or you should die forever. But God already said that. If you don't show me the utmost excellence, he doesn't care who you are, you die. There is no more forgiveness. That's the point of Revelations. There is no grace with me. Either you comply or you die. And the religious thing is about the government not persecuting the church and the church not persecuting the government. Unrighteous actions. The church can persecute the government all it wants for any injustice, any unrighteousness. The church can sue the shit out of them, can rally the vote to get them thrown out of office, they can impeach them, and so can the government crack down as they did on Waco. And I watched the government crack down on many religious organizations. I watched the IRS go through it, as my friend, she was in my small group, worked for the IRS. And the IRS was cracking down on churches for their donors writing off stuff that they received back from the church. Meaning, whatever you receive, you have to reduce the amount of donation by the gift back. They busted colleges for doing this with boosters, but they were now busting churches. And I informed and gave it to the head of NCPC, the whole article, showing the churches were watching, the IRS was watching churches, nonprofits, in what they were doing. No longer they were turning a blind eye because of all these infractions with these cults and everything else, taking money away from the people. Yes, their members, taking their money away. And the government, it wasn't used for their benefit, it was used for the benefit of the church. Why do you think God said you have to pay me? That I'm due everything I am owed. And if I don't get my money, you all perish. You cannot take my money away to benefit the cancer at St. Jude's, the children here, the church. My money must be used to benefit me first and foremost. That's the God first principle. It is used to benefit me and me alone first. I must live the benefits of what I should receive. I must live the life I deserve and not a penny less. And if you watch any trust or anything, it works that way. The HEMS provision, health, maintenance, education. If I want to go to Harvard, it pays for everything. It pays for me to live at Harvard. It pays for me to go to school at Harvard. It pays for everything. HEMS, health, maintenance, education, and support, meaning the lifestyle I want. And I can't live above the trust being able to support that level. And that's where Roy's risk-free comes in. And as long as the trust can support it, I can live in a penthouse in downtown Chicago. I can live wherever I want. I can have as many girlfriends as I can support. Literally, if they're good with it, and I'm good with it, I can have as many girlfriends as I can legally support. So make no mistake about it. The trust is to provide the highest of living as long as it's not impairing its ability to maintain or grow. That's how it works. And anything else, ask the Disney. Go to the Disney court case. They sued and removed the trustees. Why? Because the one family was living, actually, I think above what the trust should have given them, and the other family was living below. And they took it to the court. And the court said the trustee was being unfair, and the other family was a trustee. And they removed that family from the trust and hired independent trust managers. And that family that was getting deprived lifestyle, they went out and bought the Ferrari, the penthouse, and everything else, because that's what Disney Trust could afford them. The spendthrift is in there. They can't spend more than damages the trust, but they can go out, and they did. They started buying luxury clothing, high-end cars, high-end living, everything they were deprived upon. And the other family got less, still living extremely well off. But it's the ability to support them. So the funds have to stay there, but whatever lifestyle it can support. So if I go out with Gene Cho, Julie Cho, and Jed and Gina, whatever, and I give them apartments and whatever, then that's all sanctioned. If it can support that, because there's no law against how many girlfriends you can have. Do you know that? So go to King David and the others. So again, there's no, and if you're not doing that, then you all perish in hell. But how are you doing it? You're violating everything. So you're the biggest scumbag people I've ever seen, I've ever known, I've ever come across. And then you open your mouth. I should have a 45 and be able to close your mouth. And why this? Because what did they do to me, black people? Ask Costa. He was there multiple times with me when they told me I had to bow down to their gun. They said, who's got the power now? Ask them. And I said this the first time the black guy put the gun to my head, or them pulling the gun out at the tracks, getting off the RTA. And I'm like, you're right. You have the power. You can take my life. You pull that trigger. You're the master. I'm the servant. And what did they say? Yeah, man, you got it. I'm the boss. Yes, you are. You're the one with the gun, and you can take my life if I resist. I understand. Why do we give the police a gun? And if you resist arrest, they have the ability to shoot you in certain situations. Why? Because the gun makes them master. We give them the taser to make them master. We give them billy clubs to make them master. We give them handcuffs to make them master. And so God gave me the ability to end any of you if you annoy me, making me master. You might not believe it, but he doesn't care. You all will eventually die. And I can't wait. I used to pray that the Lord would end this world, end my life, and take the world. Punish all the people. Bring them into God's hands, as the Marine said. Kill them all and let God sort them out. And I used to pray for that. And God said, no. I won't take your life, and I'm not going to take their life. I'll give them a chance to repent and redeem themselves. I don't see any atonement. I don't see any repentance. I don't see anyone trying to redeem themselves. I see continuous desecration, continuously depriving me, continuously impoverishing me, throwing me out of 100 and something places, disrespecting me, the black guy beating me. I came in the bar, I sat away from all the black people. I didn't know it was a black-only bar. I said no signs, no nothing. I didn't know. I told them that. I'm searching things because black is in front of me. And I'm in a black bar, so I'm thinking about black situations. Trying to solve their problem. And I sat away from him. I was multiple seats away from him. I was on an L-shaped bar. Really, a half a U, kinda. It wasn't round, so it was straight with two sides, half sides. And unlike the circular bar, the oval at Dirtbags is the best setting. And there's a gap. The booze is above and below, so you can see through the middle. See through the middle. And so you can see the other people on the other side of the bar, creating connectivity, creating companionship. That's why Dirtbags was popular. Gary has no idea why. Mark has no idea why. I know why the structure worked. And Michael was the one who created it. And Michael was a cocaine dealer. And, oh yeah, he used Dirtbags to launder money. And he called himself a dirtbag. Michael, I knew him. I interacted with him. He called himself a dirtbag. They didn't get the pun, but he knew he took the money from cocaine, opened the bar, and used dirtbags to do money laundering of drug money on a college campus in Tucson. He used the bar to launder drug money. And he called himself a dirtbag. Dirtbags, but that's how it got its name. He wasn't lying. He was incredibly truthful to me. Just like my other friend that opened Kashubi. opened the money, was laundering cocaine money and everything else through his bars in Chicago. So was Fred Hoffman. But these people didn't lie to me. They were using the bars as a way to launder incredible amounts of illegal money. So they were padding the numbers. But they didn't match liquor sales to revenue. If they saw, they would have had more revenue than sales, because you have to grab the liquor records and the liquor purchases, the beverage purchases. They weren't hiding things. They were overpaying the government. Unlike Gary, who took over, who was shorting the government, he wasn't trying to launder money. He was trying to launder sales, taking out the general ledger, as he did at the back bar with me, and this is how I know for a fact. And he said, he took out the general ledger, and I'm like, why are you taking out the general ledger? I work. I understand accounting. I do profit and loss statements. And he's like, the rest of the night's for me. Meaning, I'm not going to pay taxes on the rest of the sales. Income tax, sales tax. I'm not going to pay taxes. He was shorting the numbers. Shorting the numbers. So he Z'd it out. Z'd it out, took out the journal, and the rest of the night it recorded sales, but that was only for him. 2 books. That's how they caught Al Capone. But I watch all these people, and they tell me the truth. And I share it with you to put an end to this shit. But I also have immigrants coming in, like the Chinese family who took care of me. And so Jen wanted to buy me health care, and I turned her down. This is before the breakdown. But we could have been domestic partners, and she could have put me on as a couples, a spouse plan. Oh, I want to go here. But the whole thing is that these are true. So help me God. These are living testimonies of how people do these illegal things and how they launder. Sometimes they overpay taxes. They overpay taxes. Do you know overpaying taxes is a felony too? What do you think money laundering is? It's overpaying taxes. Underpaying taxes is a felony, and overpaying taxes is a felony. Both are felonies. So before I go in and get food, that you have to understand where I started off in real estate. So Thurgood Marshall said, going back, you're not supposed to pay $1 more than you're supposed to, or $1 less than you're supposed to. He's a black man. We used to quote him. He sat on the Supreme Court. He talked about paying your rightful taxes. Not $1 more or not $1 less. Paying your rightful obligation. And he said this is every American's responsibility to make sure they don't short the government or overpay the government. So you do tax avoidance instead of tax evasion. So you manage when you pay taxes, not if you pay taxes. But here's a new mall coming up. Walmart's in here. Walmart, an anchor tenant. And through the anchor tenant, I would have an agreement with the mall owner. They take up a ton of space here. That I have say-so of the tenants that come into the mall. If they're leasing it from Simon Properties. I want to have first right of refusal. That you can't open this. You can't open that. only businesses that benefit Walmart can you open. I would do this if I was Target. If I was an anchor tenant like we were at Baja. We were the anchor tenant for the mall, but they didn't do the contract right. So we could have said no other restaurant. They all offered Carolina Crab House was great. It was on the far end. It didn't do any damage to our business. Totally different on the other end, and it was owned by Whittle Newton, and they opened up on Navy Pier, Whittle Newton. And do you know, I did everything I could to help that place be successful. When I was running Charlie's, Whittle Newton, I had her back. And she was a widow. She owned Carolina Crab House, which I loved. I eaten there a couple times. And I supported this widow. And their managers can testify. You can go back in history through the Social Security, find the management. And I did everything. I helped them open their tap box. I loaned them product. I helped them perfect staffing. I did everything to try to make that place successful. It failed. But also, Riva's with Stefani. I helped. John Crowder manage the bar. But I helped that place. I talked to the sous chefs used to come in. Lots of Riva's people used to. And I helped them. I helped Mike Ditka's. I helped Charlie Trotter's. You say I wasn't doing this. Bullshit. I was giving them all proprietary information to help Stefani's, to help Ditka's, to help these places, to help Charlie Trotter's. And I made their staff better. And I did. It's just they were not as efficient as me. And it's the same thing at Baja. I ran everything. Mark Weisberg was hardly there. My dentist before him was hardly there. And Tom Penn